Hello, welcome everyone to another edition of Be at Home with the AMA, taking the pulse of what marketers are doing during this pandemic. My name is Steve Heisler. I'm the staff writer for Marketing News. Always a pleasure to be joined by Sarah Steimer, managing editor for Marketing News. Hello, Sarah.
Hey, Steve. How's it going?
It's going all right. It's going all right. Today, we're going to talk about how influencers and brands can best work together to align their messaging during COVID-19.
I would actually really like to bring our attention back to what I think has been the best barometer for what consumers want right now, which is the Edelman survey, the brand trust report that they did specifically during COVID-19. And what they found was consumers have a really deep desire right now for true expertise, with 78% rating medical doctors as credible spokespeople for a brand's virus-related actions. So that makes sense. So the flip side of that, though, is that only 26% want celebrities and 28% want influencers.
One of the industries that I've read a lot about is the lifestyle industry. Influencers have been part of the lifestyle industry for a very long time. And a lot of the appeal of influencers is rooted in escapism. The advice that I've been reading is that brands should not be working with influencers to push lifestyle products, whether it's clothing or makeup or whatnot, that has to do with any sort of luxury. They should be working with influencers to, yes, promote brands and promote clothing and all sorts of other products, but promote ones that fit more into a COVID-19 lifestyle. One of the things that this article is saying is, feel free to promote sweatpants and t-shirts and truly things that people might actually be wearing right now. If you're going to talk about decor, show your actual apartment, show your backyard. Don't go any further than that. It's much more relatable. And escapism right now is looking at somebody else and seeing how they're dealing with the pandemic, but not looking at some extreme vacation that they took to Versailles last summer. And when influencers do decide to post content like that, they should work with brands to make sure that the messaging is crystal clear that this was a previous photo. It did not take place during the COVID-19 pandemic, to alleviate any confusion or bad press that might come from that.
It's interesting. Some of the influencers that I do follow on Instagram, for instance, anytime I see any of them, particularly fashion influencers, anytime I see any of them wearing shoes, I'm just scrolling right by that. There's something about the wearing of shoes right now inside of the home that just kind of like, I'm like, well, you and me are in two different worlds right now. Like, I have no interest in that. So, I'm sure that if you're a brand, you kind of want to reach out to those influencers and just make sure that they're putting things in a setting that feels relatable. And on that same note, if you're feeling relatable, I'm sure you want to make sure that you're talking with your influencers and making sure that the tone that they're striking is correct. Like, that same Edelman survey showed that people aren't quite ready for a ton of humor right now, which is not to say that you can't be funny, but I think if it's humor related to our circumstance, you should be a little bit more careful with that when it comes to the people who are basically your brand ambassadors right now.
Influencers could do very well by dropping a bit of the veneer that they've always demonstrated of sort of, this is my life. It's a little more exciting. The edges are rounded. Consumers right now truly want to see themselves represented in other people. So influencers can let a bit of their guard down and be a little bit more of themselves. And I think that that's going to connect more with the customers, particularly the ones that you mentioned before, that aren't necessarily excited to hear from celebrities or influencers. I'm guessing because there is a bit of that, oh, they're living sort of a better life than me kind of attitude.
Steve, I am so glad that you actually brought that up, because one of the articles that I read was about how this whole situation might actually help to rebrand influencers, in the sense that it's going to suddenly make them relatable, because that, to your point, like you said, like, we were never necessarily drawn to them because they were relatable. It was almost like we wanted to emulate them. We saw them as this greater version of ourselves. Another thing that I saw brought up in one of the articles that I was reading about this is that it could actually be a great place for brands to go right now, because these influencer relationships tend to be a little bit more cost effective than just straight up digital advertising.
So in closing, let's just say that it's not necessarily about removing the relationship that you have with an influencer right now if their style doesn't jibe with the times. It's about rethinking how you can work with that influencer and keeping an eye out for potentially other ways that you can work with this influencer when COVID is over, having dropped a little bit of that persona. With that, we just want to thank you for tuning in. Please visit ama.org/daily to sign up for our daily newsletter, and reach out to myself or to Sarah. We'd always love to hear from you. Our email is submit@ama.org. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Sarah. Always a pleasure.
Thanks, Steve. As it quickly gets dark in both of our apartments here in Chicago, it's a rainy day. Thanks, everyone.